Welcome back to GenuinelyLAS and welcome to a Michael Schumacher Limited Edition car you've probably never heard of. This is a Fiat Stilo Schumacher GP, one of only 200 right-hand drive cars to ever grace the UK and made in commemoration of Michael Schumacher's 5 consecutive world titles with Ferrari. And fittingly, it only comes in Ferrari Red. Now, before we dive in any further, a massive thank you to the LMR Trade Car Centre for letting me out in the car today and telling you all about it. But not only that, they've spent a massive amount of money bringing this car into a condition that was most likely better than it was when it left the factory. So a massive thank you to them. And if you want to check this car out in person, I'd highly, highly recommend it. Now, you may not have heard of the Stilo Schumacher GP, but you've probably heard about the car that it's based on. Now, I'm not talking about the Fiat Stilo here, I'm talking about the Abarth Stilo, because under the bonnet we have the same 2.4 litre 5-cylinder engine producing 170 brake horsepower to the front wheels. Now, that's where similarities begin to fade, because with the GP edition, Prodrive managed to get a hold of it and not only provide a new body kit for the Stilo Schumacher GP, but they also fettled under the hood, under the car. They improved the suspension, the ride quality, the stance, they lowered the car. So many changes have been made that you might not see on the face, and it makes it such a fun car to drive. So what makes the Stilo Schumacher GP Edition so special? Well, in essence, it's a collaboration between Prodrive and Fiat to really unlock the handling performance of the Fiat Stilo, because at this point in the Abarth Stilo, it wasn't really nailing the brief. It was getting trounced quite heavily by rivals from Ford and Volkswagen, for example. And what better excuse to go all guns blazing on the Stilo when you've just wrapped up your 5th straight World Championship with Michael Schumacher. And just like that, the Stilo GP kit was born with the sole purpose of making the Stilo Schumacher GP the best handling car in its class. It made a mighty good stab of it. So let's dive into it. It's fair to say no stone was left unturned. Even the ride height's been changed. The front of the car now sits 25mm lower and the rear 17mm lower, giving a nice little Red Bull style pitch. The front and rear alloys are also changed to 18-inch Oz wheels, which I've got to say are much better than the standard wheels, which I don't think are the best looking alloys out there. We get Eibach front and rear road springs. We get front struts from Bilstein and also rear dampers from Bilstein, which made quite a considerable difference compared to the Abarth Stilo, to say the least. We've got a Prodrive body kit all around. And when you stand where I am now, the stance of this thing looks really good. And I just can't get over how good this red looks. I'm such a fan of a Ferrari Red on an Italian hot hatch situation, so count me in. There were also a number of changes inside the Stilo Schumacher GP, with the main two being a number plaque, with this car being 855 of the 3,500 total units made worldwide, and the Schumacher floor mats, which are truly things to blow your socks off. But in fairness to Fiat, the Stilo had already received quite a significant focus on its cabin during development to compete with, ironically, what is arguably the beginning of the Volkswagen Golf's best hatchback title run, the Mark IV. Was a really interesting car for Fiat. I mean, they essentially had the opportunity to take the fight to Volkswagen and take on the Mark IV. And despite Volkswagen having launched the Mark IV first, I think it's fair to say Fiat still underperformed with the Stilo. I mean, looks wise as well, I think the Volkswagen Mark IV's a little bit safer than the Stilo. I mean, I'm a big fan of the front end of the Stilo, especially with the Prodrive body kit. But the rear, I'm not 100% sold on. And also, let's not forget, this is a 3-door version. The 5-door version is a car I think it's probably best just to not even get into right now. It's just not a good look. The standard Stilos were also pretty underpowered. The 1.2 litre petrol was probably made the most sense if you couldn't afford a Volkswagen Mark IV, but it just was underpowered, slow. The materials weren't very good, despite Fiat investing pretty aggressively into things like infotainment, the technology in this car, which on the face of it sounds really good, but let's not forget this was the early 2000s. The more tech you had in the car, the more likely it was that something or a lot of it would go wrong, and quite a few owners did find that the tech just caused more problems and more troubles than it was worth. The Mark IV was just the better car overall. But then we get to the Abarth Stilo, which, funny enough, dumped the 1.2 litre petrol engine and doubled the output to 2.4 and added a 5-cylinder version, which gave us a very good sounding engine, but a car overall that still just lacked compared to rivals like the Ford ST170. It's got 170 horsepower, which does give it a decent poke. And at first, to be honest, I was a little bit downbeat about that, because in my eyes, the Alfa Romeo 147 GTI, which was on sale at the same time, had 250 horsepower going to the front wheels from its 6-cylinder engine. But in fairness, the Stilo was a fair bit cheaper than the Alfa Romeo, and I think the Alfa Romeo was viewed as a more luxury Italian option in a way. The Fiat Stilo, and as a result the Abarth Stilo, just didn't have the desirability of the Alfa Romeo, or let alone the Volkswagen Golf Mark IV. But enter the Stilo Schumacher Edition. I think it's fair to say that at this point, having invested so heavily in the Stilo, Fiat really wanted to make something good of it. Conveniently for Fiat, Michael Schumacher in his Ferrari were absolutely trouncing the Formula One World Championship year after year after year, and that gave them a great reason to push the boundaries of what the Stilo could do, and my God, it worked well for them. God, a 5-cylinder engine is just bellissimo. There's something about Italian cars. They've got such a flair, and they've got such a flair about them. They're so fun, even if you are sat legs akimbo at the wheel to try and fit in. God, it feels like every time I want to do a piece to camera, I just have to have a little blast. It's just so addictive. I can't even, it's so hard to explain, but the 5-cylinder in this is just an addictive engine. It sounds great, and the Remus exhaust really does build on that character so well. It's almost entertaining in a way that this was being built at a similar time to the Alfa Romeo 147 GTI, which is a dream car of mine. And to think that at that time in Italy, they were just putting big, punchy V6 and 5-cylinder engines just in their hatchbacks for fun and just kind of see what happened. There's such character for engines, and I think especially with the Abarth, it felt like you were probably buying the engine and then kind of getting the Stilo, which wasn't perfect at all, wrapped around it. But in the Abarth, in the Schumacher GP, it feels like they've solved it. They really unlocked what the Stilo could do. I mean, first of all, the steering feel so direct. It's nicely weighted. Oh, it just feels special. The engine as well, I know I've just said it, but it feels like it's egging you on all the time. Just a little bit more. Just pushing a little bit more. There's a bit more power, And it's so nice as well. There's obviously no turbocharger on this 5-cylinder. And just feeling anywhere in the rev range, having that power, you're not feeling it waning away. Oh man. Oh. It's a special engine. It's a special combination of engine and road feel. And I've been driving on some pretty ropey roads today, some pretty rough and ready roads, and the car's handled it so well. I mean, it's not a massive surprise considering Prodrive is based in the UK, if they're going to build a suspension package for a hot hatch in the UK, or handling package, it's going to be orientated to the pothole-filled roads we have in the UK. But my God, it's special. It's special. The seats are surprisingly supportive. When I saw them, I thought they look nice. They'll probably be quite comfortable, but they probably won't be the best, but they are really comfy. As you can see, I am a tall guy, so I'm kind of sat legs akimbo of the wheel, which, you know, isn't super ideal. But like I said, even the 147 GTA, this is the setup you have. There isn't loads of space in here. And just idling away here at the lights, you can just feel the rumble, the light rumble of the 5-cylinder. Good grief. This feels like when, you know, what, 2005, 2006, when we were making just slightly ridiculous cars with slightly ridiculous engines. Well, what a time. Oh my good grief. Oh my good grief. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. Speaking to Lewis at LMR Trade Car Centre made me appreciate how much time and money they've put into this car. I mean, Lewis bought this car off of somebody who had basically just held it, who purchased it and just had it sat in a barn, in a garage for years and years and years. And funnily enough, it just didn't really work at all when it came out. And Lewis spent over £5,000 to bring it up to the standard it is in today. We look at some of the photos of the underbody, for example, it looks factory, even better than factory fresh. It looks like a Stilo Schumacher GP Plus. And how lucky are we all to have an example as good as this on the road? Because if you Google Stilo Schumacher Edition, you're probably going to see a couple of rope examples. Very, very, very few, maybe one or two in the UK market, but they've got some ropey ones hanging around. I don't love about the Stilo Schumacher GP, and they're just personal niggles, but they're just small things. But as much as I love the stance and almost the rake of having the lower front nose, you do wonder when you're going down some really undulating roads where the front bumper is, because you really worry it's going to scratch. The gear changes don't feel notchy like in a Type R Honda. It almost feels a bit sticky at times, going to fourth from fifth, or sometimes going across to reverse. But it really do just feel like niggles. I mean, I think more than anything, the Stilo Schumacher GP is frustrating. It feels like the Abarth Stilo we should have got in the first place, but we just didn't. We got a disappointing almost warm-up run or trial effort at the big deal. So for a lot of people, I'm sure this came too late. It was almost too little, too late, which is a massive shame, but again, something that Fiat was pretty self-inflicted by Fiat. And part of me wonders if the Schumacher GP was the Stilo that we got straight away, if we'd look back at the Stilo, or the hot hatch Stilo, differently. Especially when you consider that the Fiat Bravo came pretty promptly to get rid of this, to get the Stilo moved on and into the bin in a way. So it's a shame. I kind of sit here and I love driving this thing. I think it's really, really fun, but I'm also quite sad that this is just a tiny population, a tiny portion of the Stilos that people got to experience. And as it's a privilege, but what a shame. What a shame. Thank you for watching, though. This has been one of the coolest days I've had being an making the automotive YouTube content. A massive, massive thank you to Lewis at LMR Trade Car Centre for letting me have a go in the Stilo, and a massive thank you to them also for how much work and money they put into getting this thing up to such an incredible standard. Where the car world is lucky to have this, and it's massively down to them. So thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please drop a like, subscribe if you're new, which you probably are, and I will see you all in the next one.